Hi, everybody. Oh, and I need the ball in order to bring up my screen, too. My name is Alyssa Klein. I am the Transition and Pre-Employment Transition Specialist for Vocational Rehabilitation Services. So I want to welcome everybody here today to our Transition/Pre-Employment Transition Services meeting this afternoon. We're so happy to have our VRS staff and our community partners joining us today. So we look forward to having some time to review some items related to pre-ETS, as well as having some local discussions within our teams. Okay, now I just gotta share here. I wanna get the presentation going. Hopefully you all received the PowerPoint and other materials in an email from Ann Macalet. If you did not get those materials, you can let us know and we'll make sure you get those. Here's our agenda for this afternoon. So we're going to take a moment here. We'll have a welcome from Dee Torgerson, our director, and Chris McVeigh, our director for strategic initiatives. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the PT contract updates that's happening right now and the pre-employment transition services items in those contract updates. And then we're going to clarify hopefully some things that have been confusing for a lot of folks related to authorizing for pre-employment transition services and invoicing, and hopefully have a few new tools for you with those processes. And then we'll have some time for local discussion and Q&A. And we'll make sure we get a break in there so that we're not just going straight through, because I know it's hard to be sitting in front of a computer all day. So with that, I would like to turn it over. Now, is Dee on for this afternoon session? She get back in.
Yes, she did. She just has to unmute herself.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I forgot to check that first. Sorry, Dee.
Hi. I'm here. I don't know if you can see my video or not.
Yes,
I have my fur coworker with me today. So hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We are honestly clunking through WebEx. It's been a little bit difficult for us, not the best platform, but it's what we have for today. So just a big thanks to Ann Macalet, and we have Gretchen Yakima from our staff development team, and Alyssa for leading this and leading through kind of our clunky technology. So I'm glad you all could join us today. We are really excited about having our community partners along with our VRS staff and to do some ongoing development and work with you as we're sorting through pre-ETS. And we also know that, I mean, pre-ETS has been a bit of a bear for everyone to get through. It's been a developing and changing landscape, and we need you all. We need our community partners to be doing this work and to be helping us do this work and helping to work out the details. It's complex, and we want to be able to give all of you the information, training, and the support that's needed so that ultimately we can be providing these important services to students. And of course, we have quite the year we're living in now, and as we're really trying to figure out how best to provide services in a landscape, actually we're frankly still kind of unsure about. I'm not as familiar with what's happening in the local schools up in the northern region, in the metro, at least as far as the high school level students. Most of them have made decisions to be at least starting out the year doing distance learning. So it may look different in the counties and the local areas that you're in, or there may be some hybrid. But again, those are just kind of extra layers of challenges that we are all trying to work through in these in this new day and age. So thank you for joining us. And again, we're here to provide information and support and help. And thanks to Alyssa's leadership in this large amount of work, and also Chris McVeigh, who is giving lots of added support as well. And with that, I'm going to either turn it back to you, Alyssa, or over to Chris if she is ready. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. For DEED VRS, and as Dee and Alyssa are welcoming you, I also extend a welcome to both our VRS staff in the northern area of Minnesota, which is a very large chunk of the state, as well as our community partners. We think that sharing information where we can have both VRS and community partners together, although remotely tuning in, where we hear the same information together, and that the conversations that we know need to take place in order to best connect the pre-ETS kids, those students that are eligible and potentially eligible for pre-ETS services or VR services, to our community partners that are offering them or are considering offering them. That's the best way that we have to make those key connections. Just really quickly, one of the things that I mentioned this morning to our VRS staff about our work in pre-ETS, as Dee said, we've just begun and we've had a year in, and there's been a lot of heavy lifting on the part of many people within VRS, including Alyssa Klein. We need to look beyond just what this year or the next 6 months or the start of the school year is going to be around pre-employment transition services. Pre-employment transition services is part of the Workforce Innovation Opportunities Act. It requires state VR programs to invest at least 15% of their appropriation towards pre-ETS services, and that includes, as Dia said, our community partners. We need you. We need you to help get this work done, to make those connections with students, and also to ensure that we get that 15% spent every year. We want it to be services and supports to students that are going to help launch them into careers down the line. And we believe that our community partners play a very important role in that. The other thing I ask all of us to do is to think beyond, as I said, the end of our hood ornament, and really thinking about even the next school year and the next school year after that and beyond, because we will continue to have to and want to develop the capacity of students in preparing for careers and jobs that are in competitive integrated employment. So welcome this afternoon. I'm looking forward to some key updates that will both be helpful to VRS staff and our community partner staff. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dee, and thank you, Chris. I am going to go back to sharing my desktop. And want to start off today with just reviewing, again, the fact that there is an open amendment period right now for PT contracts, and that's open until September 2nd. I'll just take 1 second. Is everything showing up on the screen okay? I think, Anne, you might have unmuted.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, everything was good.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, through September 2nd. And for our staff to know that once those contracts are updated, that Ann Paulson will be sending out emails updating all staff as the contracts do get updated. What I have, I'm going to just pull up real quickly here. I have a link in the PowerPoint to the DEED VRS webpage, and I'm sure most of you have looked at this, but in case you have not seen that, we do have a page dedicated to amending PT contracts for this amendment period. And you'll see there's tabs. For instance, there's a whole tab on pre-employment transition services, and I'm going to be reviewing what's in this tab here today, but you can refer back to this webpage to get more information. Transportation was a big item that was announced as well by Kim Babine. By the way, Kim Babine, who is our Community Partnerships Director, wishes she could be here today. She had a scheduled vacation. That's something she had scheduled a while back, so she couldn't make it here today. So that's why I'm presenting this portion of the presentation today. But anyway, she had sent out a communication broadly to our community partners, giving more information about transportation and pre-ETS and other things related to amendments. But I'll get into some of that right now. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint here. So this is the list of all the things related to pre-employment transition services and things that have changed for you to know about in terms of this contract amendment process. So I'll just go through this list so that everyone is really clear about what is changing. The first on this list is relates to providers paying the wages for work experiences. It's otherwise known as work experience wages on your contract. We heard loud and clear that the 25% administrative cost was not enough to cover your expenses for providing payroll. So thankfully, this will now be increased to 50%. So that means that on top of the hourly wage that will be paid to the student, 50% of those wages will also be reimbursed to the provider to cover administrative costs. And later I'm going to be reviewing how that works with authorizing and invoicing. Number 2 on the list, we are reducing the number of service titles that pre-ETS are authorized under to help make it a little less confusing. And the next slide reviews those changes, so I'll review that with you in one moment. Number 3, the travel differential. So on the pre-ETS rate structure, we had a travel differential for when providers were traveling over 25 miles and 50 miles, et cetera. We're removing that because now we're able to pay for the cost for the travel time for providers. So again, if you go and you want to see more about all the changes related to transportation, you can go to that web page and it's all laid out there. But again, for the purposes of pre-ETS, we just have the one set of rates, and then we'll be able to reimburse providers for their travel time within the pre-ETS service rate. And I'm also going to review more of that later. Another piece to know about is earlier this year, the Rehabilitation Services Administration, or RSA, announced some pre-ETS funding flexibility. It allows VRS to pay for more things with our pre-ETS dollars. This category is called Services in Support of Pre-ETS. So one thing that's important to know is that we can only pay for those items for students who are eligible for VR. So unfortunately, we can't pay for those items for students who are potentially eligible. It allows us to pay for things that help support a student to access pre-ETS. So it includes things like transportation or clothing needed for work experiences. And for the purposes of PT contracts, it includes 2 new items. So we now are going to be adding pre-ETS intake onto your contracts, which will be for students who are eligible for VR, as well as work-based learning coaching. So work-based learning coaching is the same thing as job coaching, only it's to support a student who's in a work experience. Again, potentially eligible students are not able to receive work-based learning coaching. However, if we're working with a student that does need that service, there may be discussions about having them apply for regular VR services. Another new set of services that we want to add to contracts relates to providing pre-ETS services to young people who either age out of pre-ETS or are no longer in school. So if you recall, we're only able to provide pre-ETS to students who meet the definition of a student with a disability. And that definition is they have a disability, they're between the ages of 14 and 21 through 21, and they have to be in an education program that yields a credential. So when a student turns age 22 or they graduate or are no longer in an education program, we're not able to use our pre-ETS funds to pay for services. And so a problem that we were running across at times were when pre-ETS were being provided to a student and then they suddenly, or they're done with school or they turn 22, we can't continue that service. So that's why there is the option to add those same pre-ETS services as regular VR services so that those services can continue even when an individual is no longer a student for pre-ETS purposes. Special programming. So some of our providers have training programs or camps or special programs that are funded at a certain rate that doesn't line up with our pre-ETS rate schedule. An example in the north is our Career Force partner, Career Solutions out of St. Cloud. They host every summer a camp, Career One, if I'm remembering the title of their camp. There's a certain cost to that for a student to attend. And so it's just easier, so we don't have to finagle with those pre-ETS rates to put those special programs onto your contract. So if you offer something special like that, another example, I know Goodwill Easter Seals offers retail skills training. It's a certain program that has a certain fee per person that attends. Make sure you're having those discussions about adding those items to your contract. Ann Paulson, who's our contract specialist, is on the line here today. I know some questions come up about that. We can go to her today to answer some of those questions, but you also can reach out to Ann because she supports all of our providers in the northern region to help with questions on your contract amendment. And last but not least, we're hoping that we're going to be able to simplify the group rates. That's another little complicated piece, we know, because we have a schedule of rates that decreases the more students that are in a group setting, and we know that it's hard to keep track of all of that. It's very complicated with invoicing. It's complicated for VRS staff with reviewing invoices. So we're working on some ideas right now. We're hoping with this amendment cycle that we're going to be able to simplify those group rates to maybe one group rate or maybe two. So more to come very, very soon on that. So as I noted, the service titles, we're reducing some of those. So just to be clear on the service types and service titles. So the service type on your contract are these broad pre-ETS categories. And actually, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up this document. Hopefully you've all seen this document. This is the definitions that are on PT contracts. And I also have that linked in the PowerPoint, and it's on our website. This reviews each type and title for those pre-ETS services. So one type is pre-ETS job exploration counseling. And the title, there's just one title within that broad type, which is job exploration counseling services. Same thing with pre-ETS post-secondary education counseling. It's a broad type. And then we have post-secondary education counseling services as the title. Now here's where there's changes. Pre-ETS workplace readiness training is one broad type. We used to have these 4 different titles within workplace readiness training. Now we have it all down to just one title to make it easier for everybody. So it's all going to be under workplace readiness training services. And any of these items, these 4 bulleted items, it goes to the top of this next column here. Public transportation training, benefits information services, IL services or soft skills training, and job seeking skills training. All of those things are all under one title now for workplace readiness training services. And then with work-based learning, The change there is that we've also reduced a number of the service titles into one. So all of these 5 things here, career mentorship, informational interview, job shadow, service learning, and workplace tour field trip is all under one title now. They will all be authorized under introductory work activities. So when that's authorized, it can be any of these services within that title. And then there's 2 other titles within work-based learning. One is work-based or work experience services, and we're going to review that thoroughly today. There's a lot of questions about it. And then work experience wages. And then the one last change, which I talked about a little earlier, is that we have a new type called services in support of pre-ETS, and that's for students who are eligible for VR. We can authorize for a pre-ETS intake for those students, and we can also authorize for work-based learning coaching. So I hope this document helps all of you. You can refer back to it. If you have questions about what's included within each of these categories, so when you get an authorization or referral, you know exactly what can be provided. Okay.
I think this was mentioned, this is Chris McVeigh. One thing that was mentioned earlier, or if it hasn't been this afternoon, is that this is being recorded. I can imagine that there may be some community partners that are thinking about people that weren't able to join today, that they want to make sure that they get this information. And so I believe that will be available, right, Anne?
Yes, that's correct. We're recording it today and captioning it. So I forgot to mention that up front. There's a multimedia viewer too, speaking and captioning. That should be available on the right-hand side panel.
Thank you, Anne.
Another piece I'll let you all know, and some of you might have heard me say this a few times over the past couple of weeks, but we are going to be recording pre-ETS training modules for all of our providers, and we're going to have them available on our website. We haven't been able to finalize them because we've been finalizing things for this amendment process and trying to get all these materials ready. We're getting really close, and today is like a sneak peek of what one of those training modules will cover. So we'll repeat a lot of the same information in those training modules for you to refer back to later as well. And again, I know a lot of questions are around authorizing and invoicing related to pre-ETS. So I want to review some of that for you today. So another reminder for all of you, first of all, is if you're not getting communications that are sent out broadly to all of our community partners, I'm going to exit out of here and just show you on our web page. Excuse me. So under our community partners page, oh no, here we have this right here. It says staying up to date. I also have it linked in the PowerPoint. If you're not getting emails and messages that come from VRS to our community partners, be sure you get signed up here. So all you have to do is enter your email address, and you'll get all the updates related to PT contracts, or sometimes we're sending out information about training available for pre-ETS, which we will be announcing once those training modules are in place. So anytime there's an announcement, it's important for you to get these emails and make sure you're signing up on the web page for that. So another piece I want to show you on our website, again, I have it linked in the PowerPoint, is this page that's called Pre-ETS Resources for PT Contracted Providers. So this page has, as the title says, resources for all of you. First of all, like today's webinar will be linked on here when it's ready and available for all of you. And you'll see we have other webinars on here as well. So in March, we had an update. That PowerPoint, the recording is there in the PowerPoint. As many of you know, we've offered opportunities to get access to certain websites. So eTrack is a website, and Virtual Job Shadow, which we've announced. We have the training for those platforms on here as well. We have a tab on here that says resources. And I would really encourage all of you, if you haven't looked at this yet and you're looking for more resources related to pre-employment transition services, that you take a look at this pre-ETS toolkit. So I'll just bring it up here real quick. It goes through all of the 5 primary pre-employment transition services. This is an introductory page here. But here's the table of contents. It goes through each of the 5 pre-ETS areas, gives you the definition, it gives you resources, it gives you activities for providing, just different ideas for providing each of the 5 pre-employment transition services. We also have an appendix for the top 25 pre-ETS resources. There's a lot of curriculum ideas in here for you. So we're trying to include everything possible that might be helpful to you in providing pre-employment transition services. So if you haven't seen this, I highly recommend that you look through that. We also at the very end have, let me scroll there, examples for how services can be provided. So we have that divided as classroom or group services, as well as individual or one-on-one services.
Hi, this is Chris McVeigh. I just wanted to add in the previous slide that you showed, Alyssa, regarding the different ways that our community partners can connect to provide those services. We do not, DVRS does not expect that our community partners are going to develop curriculum to deliver it. We really we need you to be the deliverers of the services and of the classes or whatever the need is, and I'm so grateful for the local conversations that are going to take place in a little while. But it's not an expectation that you build that curriculum. As Alyssa indicated, there is a lot of really great curriculum that already exists. We're looking for folks that can deliver that curriculum. Now, I know that we are very much wanting to guide and encourage. There's some curriculum that we are aware of that is very good. And so, again, having access to this information and for us to connect with our community partners and VRS staff to give some ideas and feedback on where to find that curriculum. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And we're still, finding out about curriculum ideas. We're still looking into what's the best out there. So we're still on this journey of understanding everything that's out there and how we can collectively provide this together. So as we learn more, we'll let you know about more too. So as Chris said, I think using this toolkit would be a great way for finding resources so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So just to finish up here on this page, we have sample reports and invoices for you to review and other information on, links to the PT contract information, et cetera. We will continue to use this site as a place to put resources, so we'll keep you updated when this is updated. Okay, so the information I'm sharing today with this authorizing and invoicing, we'll be putting it in, we have a guide almost put together, so we will be sending that out to you as well. So just one moment here, I'm gonna pause real quick. You guys, people hear the dishes in the background and I'm giving a training for 150 people. Okay, sorry about that. So I just wanted to review real quickly because there's been some confusion about who VRS is serving. And when we talk about pre-employment transition services, we're talking about students who are, our traditional individuals that we would serve through VR, which are those who are eligible for VR and are on our counselor's caseload. Those students are provided pre-employment transition services as needed, and we add those services to their employment plan. And then VRS also serves students who are potentially eligible for VR. So those students are served by our pre-ETS representatives, and they also receive pre-employment transition services. So I think there was confusion about, maybe just one of those groups of students receive pre-ETS versus the other, but we provide pre-ETS as needed to both eligible and potentially eligible students. Okay. I've talked about this a little bit with the contract definitions. And then the rates, again, just to review real quickly with the rates. So for one-on-one services, we're at $75 an hour. That's for one-on-one services. And for group rates, more information will be coming on any changes to that, hopefully very soon. Here is a new piece that we want to ask all of our VRS staff, as well as our, and for our providers to know about. We want to follow a schedule going forward for pre-ETS services for authorizations, because again, because pre-ETS is complicated and hard to keep track of, we're trying to find as many items as possible to make it easier. So one way of making it easier is to have a set schedule of end dates on the authorizations, because we know it's hard to track when an authorization is going to be expiring. So we are asking that all authorizations have one of these 4 end dates. And you'll see it's on a quarterly basis, so every 3 months. The first date being March 31st, then we have June 30th, September 30th, and December 31st. And there are stars by March 31st and December 31st, because if there are unused hours on an authorization that is due to end on March 31st, we don't necessarily need to do a new authorization. Those authorizations can be extended to the next end date. So it could be extended till June 30th, or in the case of the December 31st, it could be extended to March 31st. The June 30th and September 30th are hard stop dates because those are the ends of our state and federal fiscal year, so we can't have authorizations go beyond those dates anyway. So we ask that everybody, we're probably already adhering to the timeline for September 30th as it is, because we can't, again, that's the end of our federal fiscal year, so authorizations have to end by September 30th. And I just want to remind everybody that providers have 90 days from the end date to invoice VRS. Okay, so there's been a lot of questions about what community partners can invoice for. And this is the list. I'm going to review it carefully with everybody, because this is the list of all the items that a community partner can invoice for with pre-employment transition services. So the first item is the most obvious item, which is the service time. So providing pre-ETS to students either individually or in groups. The second piece is the first meeting. So as I said earlier, students who are eligible for VR now can have an intake authorized for, but students who are potentially eligible, we're not allowed to do that. So we authorize for a first meeting instead. And so it's authorized within the regular service time for those students who are potentially eligible. The next item on here is preparation time, or prep time. So it would be your time to prepare or revise lesson plans, to prepare content for one-on-one sessions, to get materials for sessions ready, for any communications or attempted communications with students, parents, or schools, to get meetings set or planned for or coordinate services. It also can include editing resumes and cover letters and other documents related to work experiences. That's a lot. It can include employer development time. So that would be a provider's time calling or trying to connect with employers related to work-based learning opportunities. It could be time spent doing internet search for job leads, etc. And lastly, it can include travel time. We talked about this earlier. It would be your round trip time traveling from your primary work location to where services are going to be provided to a student or group of students. That also can include time for a provider to pick up and drop off a student. We've also clarified that for pre-ETS only, providers can bill for travel time even when a student doesn't show up for their appointment. We realize that, especially in many parts of the northern area of the state, you're traveling long distances to go meet with students. And we know you're doing all you can to remind the student of their appointment and maybe coordinating with schools when you're able to go out to schools, of course. But sometimes the student doesn't show, and you can spend, a long time in the car going to visit a student and then they don't show. So you are able to bill for that time. The key is communicating with the VRS staff when those things happen, because obviously we don't want that to happen, and the VRS staff will want to know about that and work with you on how we can work with that student so that doesn't happen in the future. In terms of what community partners are not able to bill for, that would include time writing reports and preparing invoices. So you basically can bill for most things. So I have an example just to bring this all together. Pathways is the name of the community provider for many of our examples today, but Pathways is a contracted pre-ETS provider that will be assisting a student with looking for an intermediate work experience or job. And we're going to talk more about that term intermediate job a little bit later, but basically that means a regular job where an employer is hiring a student and the employer is paying the wages. And we call it an intermediate job because it's not the final job that VRS is assisting a student with, or you might be assisting a student with, where we would end up closing their case file successfully with VRS. An intermediate job is a work experience. It's a stepping stone job along the way. So that's what pre-ETS work experiences can be. They also can be short-term work experiences, and again, we'll talk more about that. But in this case, the Pathways is assisting a student with that intermediate job where the employer will pay the wages. Pathways and VRS decided that VRS will authorize for 20 hours of pre-ETS work-based learning work experience services at $75 an hour times 20 hours equals $1,500 for that first authorization. So this authorization includes time for that first meeting, for the services in the work experience services, any preparation time, employer development, and travel time. So when we're authorizing, it's all those things all in that one rate and on that one authorization. Okay. Just want to check in to see if there's any questions. We'll take a break in a little bit here because at about 2 o'clock we'll take a break. So we'll just get through a little more content and then again have that break, and we'll have more time for discussion in a while too. So I put this slide in here just to help again to understand that category of pre-ETS work-based learning. And as I said, that there's 3 titles in work-based learning. We have introductory work activities, which includes those 5 items on the screen: career mentorship, informational interview, job shadow, service learning, and workplace tours and field trips. So that's all under introductory work activities. And then the other 2 pieces are work experience services and work experience wages. And that's what I'm going to take a little more time with today because that's where there's the most confusion. So if a VRS staff person is referring a student to a provider for work experience services, they could be referring for 3 different reasons, 3 possible reasons. The first is that intermediate job. So again, it's a regular job in the community where an employer pays the wages. So they're authorizing up to 30 hours for that provider to help that student look for the job, help that student with orienting to that job, and then following up with that student. The second reason a VRS staff person could be referring a student for work experience services is for a short-term work experience. And in this case, the site isn't developed yet. So we don't have a business partner. We need to find a business partner. And then the provider would be paying that student a wage. So we can authorize up to 20 hours for getting that site developed. And then once that site is developed and that student is placed in that site, we're orienting that student to that work experience and then following up with that student. And on top of that, work experience wages would be authorized to pay the student a wage. And then the third way that we would be referring a student, or the third type of work experience service, is when there already is a site developed. So you may have a business partner in the community that meets the needs for a student for a work experience, so you don't need to spend time doing that. It's a matter of, helping that student get oriented to that work experience and then following up. And so we can authorize up to 10 hours for that service. And again, we would also authorize on top of that the work experience wages so that that student could be paid by you as the provider. Now these hours, the 30, the 20, and the 10, we can go beyond that, but we ask our staff to get their supervisor approval to go beyond the 30, 20, and 10. So this is another question that comes up. But when there's a difference between when a student is needing help with a short-term work experience or an intermediate job, those both fall into work experience services, and the difference between that and a final job, which is authorized as a PBA. So a final job is, again, that job that the student is going to hopefully keep for, you never want to say permanently, nothing's ever permanent, but for a long-term basis, and it's that ultimate job that we're helping that student get and that we close the VRS case file successfully afterwards. So then we're authorizing for our PBA. And sometimes students who are in high school, they're getting towards the end of their high school years, and they're not going to go on to post-secondary. We might authorize for a PBA for those students because it's their final job. But if it's a work experience while they're in school and it's not their final job, that's when we would authorize work experience services within pre-ed. And then coaching. So as I explained, we're able to pay for work-based learning coaching using our pre-ed funds for students who are eligible for VR. So work-based learning coaching can support a student in a work experience. But if a student gets that final job that we use the PBA to help them, to pay for you to help them find that final job, then we would use regular VR funds for job coaching. So short-term work experience, 120 hours. So that 120 hours is just a suggested time frame for those short-term work experiences. As the name implies, they're meant to be short-term and not ongoing forever. It's meant to be an experience where a student can try out a job, try out what work is like, get some experience under their belt before looking for a regular job that an employer pays their wages. And we say 120 hours. Again, it's a suggested time frame. They can go less and they can go more. And there doesn't need to be any RAM or supervisor approval for how many hours that would go. But it just wouldn't be ongoing like for months and months, because if a student wants to get a more long-term work experience, then we can authorize for a provider to help them find that intermediate job where an employer would pay their wages. I'm hoping that helps clarify the 120 hours a little bit. Another tool that we have created for all of you to help wrap your head around work experiences is this authorizing flow chart. The link on the left, I have links on here, but I realize it's our internal site and I haven't put it on the external site yet. I'm just reminded of that, but you all did, everybody that registered did get these flow charts emailed to them. So hopefully you have those along with your PowerPoint. If you don't have them, let me know. I will be getting them on the external website very soon. But I'm going to pull up the flow chart and just, again, show you, this is exactly what I just explained, but it helps walk you through how we authorize for work experiences. So you start at the top. What type of work experience are we referring for? So are we referring for that intermediate job where an employer will pay the wages, so a regular job? Or are we looking for a short-term work experience where you as the provider will pay the student a wage? And then I'll go down the left here for intermediate job. We have a slightly different process for students who are potentially eligible for VR versus students who are eligible for VR. Because, as you'll see, students who are potentially eligible, we can't authorize an intake, so we authorize for that first meeting. And our pre-ETS representatives complete the pre-ETS referral form. So we have a special referral form for students who are potentially eligible, because the information we have about a potentially eligible student is much less than what we have for an eligible student, because we're not required to collect as much information. So, and then if it's an student eligible, for all work experiences, we're completing the invitation to placement. So even though this isn't a PBA, as you'll see on the invitation to placement, we have a checkbox for pre-ETS work experience. So the same information that you get for a PBA, you would get for an eligible student for you to help them with a work experience. So you have all the information you need in order to help that student with that work experience. And then if you go down the flow chart, the intake or first meeting takes place. We expect that with a work experience for an intermediate job, that at the very beginning, again, because it looks just like the regular job placement process, that a placement plan would be completed together as a team, just to identify the roles that everybody has, so everybody's clear about that. And then this is all the information I just reviewed. We can authorize up to 30 hours for you to help that student find a job, orient to the job, and for you to follow up with that student and the employer. That time can include phone calls and emails with the student's team and employers. We can go beyond the 30 hours with RAM approval. And for students who are eligible for VR, if they need coaching, we can authorize for pre-ETS work-based learning coaching. The same process is mirrored with short-term work experiences. Same thing, you'll get the pre-ETS referral form for a potentially eligible student. You'll get the invitation to placement for students who are eligible. The difference here is you don't need to complete a placement plan for the short-term work experiences. And then we have it broken down, like if the site is already developed, what we we can authorize up to 10 hours and what's included in that 10 hours. And if you will be developing the site, we can authorize up to 20 hours and what's included. And then we also indicate on here, along with that, we have to authorize for PRES, work-based learning, work experience wages, to pay the wages for that student. And again, that right now it's at 25% administrative costs. Once your contract is amended, we're going up to 50%. And a student can also receive coaching for this work experience as well. I don't know how to get rid of this note, but it's for eligible students only. Okay, we're at 2 o'clock. I think we should take a little break. Why don't we go until 2:10? So let's take a break now. You can just put yourself, or if you already are on mute, but go take a break, come back at 2:10, and we're almost done with this training portion, and then we'll get into discussion time very soon.
And can I add that I might individually kind of chat with some people, just waiting to hear what your team decision is. And if you don't have a choice on who your team is for your breakout group, you can just assign me anywhere. So just wanted to make sure to mention that, but I'll individually chat. So if you come back, just pay attention to your chat and we'll keep down there. But getting a lot of that figured out, so thank you.
And this is Gretchen. I've got a few that have sent me messages about which breakout rooms, so I'll send those your way.
Thank you.
And this is Gretchen. I have a quick question for you about the breakout sessions.
Sure. Yeah.
We have somebody listening by phone, and they're wondering if they will be placed into a breakout session.
What's their name?
Denise Johnson. So I don't see her name on the list. She's a call-in user.
Just double checking.
Are you guys wondering where she's from or not?
No, I've got which room she wants to be in.
Okay.
I'm just not sure if a phone can be placed into a breakout session.
Sounds good.
She had reached out to me, and I don't know the answer.
And at least from my knowledge, unless she connects to the computer, she may not be able to.
Okay. If it helps, which I'm not sure, I was trying to mess around with the breakout sessions myself, at least look at the list. I do know which call-in user she is, if that's helpful, but I don't know if you can choose a call-in user to place them in a breakout room.
Yeah, I haven't been able to connect those. It's a little different than Zoom.
Okay.
So
I'll connect with her. I'm not sure if she's still listening or not, but I'll reach out to her via email.
okay, great.
Thanks, Ann.
Okay, I think we'll come back together. I want to apologize for the noise in the background at my house. Even though my family knows that I'm giving a presentation, they decided to continue on with making or canning pickles and making a lot of noise. So anyway, I apologize for that.
Melissa, we were just impressed that somebody might be doing dishes. I don't have that at my house, so I think it's a great opportunity.
Well, and that's, you know, they weren't even doing dishes. They were making more of a mess than anything. So the fun times we get to deal with working from home, right? I know there was a question about when the recording of today's meeting will be available. And I know after we get the recording, Ann Maclet does a lot of wonderful work with getting that all prepared, and it takes a little time. So usually, Ann, would you say that's about a week or so that we'll have it available?
Yeah, we'll want to connect it to the captioning and then edit it a little bit, but yeah, about a week should be about right.
Ann does so much work behind the scenes. You have no idea. And even to do something that seems simple as take a recording and put it online is not that simple. So I know she has to do a lot of work to line up the captioning and all that. So we will, that page I showed you that I pulled up real quick here, and I have to share my screen, I realize. Share my desktop. So for all of our partners that are on the line today, I showed you, and I have it linked in the web or in the PowerPoint, but we have this pre-ETS resources for PT contracted providers, and we have this webinar link. It will be within this webinar link within a week. So you can watch for it there. Okay. So we don't have a whole lot left of content, but we'll want to get through it because hopefully it's helpful to you, and I have another, hopefully a resource that will be helpful to you with invoicing. So we'll get through this. I'll get to our slide here. So just a little bit more about authorizing for pre-employment transition services. Some questions have been asked about if it's less than a full hour, what's the lowest increment that we go, and the lowest would be by the quarter hour. So we can authorize and you can bill by as low as the quarter hour. And of course, VRS and community partners will work together to estimate the number of hours necessary to complete the services that are being requested. Travel, estimating travel time. I just thought I would review a few of the things that Kim Babine had sent out in her communication on travel. Again, that's online. But both VRS and community partners, again, would be working together to estimate what the travel time would be. This is for pre-ETS services and our regular VRS services. But you know, estimating that time that would go on the authorization, and you can use mapping services such as Google Maps to determine the most direct and efficient route and the expected transportation time given anticipated delays such as weather and rush hour traffic. Transportation may be authorized from the community partner staff's primary work location. However, when community partner staff do not start from the primary work location, the allowable transfer time is either A, the time from the community partner staff residence to the appointment, or B, from the primary work location to the appointment, whichever is less. So I'm going to get into some examples. This will go through all the information we just reviewed, but again, examples can help us a little bit more with wrapping our head around things. So the first example we have is Stephen. So he's being referred to a provider to help him in finding an intermediate job. So Stephen is a senior, he has never had a job, He would like assistance to get a pre-ETS work experience or intermediate job where the employer pays the wages. He'd like to do stocking at a retail store. So he's going to be working with the community partner named Pathways to help him find the job. So this is what I say, authorization or authorizations, because sometimes we might authorize, like in this case, for the first meeting first, and then we might discuss at that meeting what else will need to be authorized. At other times, staff may authorize for all of it together. So that's why it could be all in one or it could be separate authorizations. But this is an example of what the authorizing would look like for Stephen. So if Stephen was a potentially eligible student, there would be 1 to 2 hours for that first meeting. And because the service that's going to be provided is work experience services, that's what the first meeting would be authorized under. If he's eligible for VR, we'd be authorizing for a pre-ETS intake. We realize that pre-ETS intake isn't on the contract yet, so we're using whatever pre-ETS, or excuse me, whichever intake fee rate you have on contracts right now. And then we can authorize up to 30 hours at $75 an hour. The type is work-based learning. The title is work experience services. And again, this can include time for job search, orienting to the job, and follow-up. It also can include that preparation, employer development, and travel time. So pretty easy. The second example is Sadie. So she's being referred to a provider where the provider will develop the short-term site. So there isn't a site developed. She, in this case, she's a junior and she has this goal of being an auto mechanic, and she would really like a work experience in an auto shop. So she's being referred to the provider to see if that can be possible, to see if there can be a short-term experience developed. And she's also going to be working with Pathways. So the authorizing for Sadie can look like this. Again, 1 to 2 hours for that first meeting if she's potentially eligible, or an intake fee if she's eligible. And then up to 20 hours at $75 an hour, same type and title, work-based learning, work experience services. And then that time can be to develop the short-term site, orient Sadie to the experience, and then follow up with her. And it can also include the preparation, employer development, and travel time. The other piece with Sadie, because it's a short-term experience where the provider's paying the wages, then we have to authorize work experience services. So in this example, we always look at what does an entry-level employee make in that at that place of employment. So in this case, entry shop helpers earn $11 an hour. So the hourly fee to Pathways is that $11 for the wages, and right now it's plus 25%, soon to be 50% when contracts are amended, for those administrative costs. So right now, the 25% comes to $275 an hour. And so the authorization would be $13.75 times 80 hours if she was going to be working 80 hours for that month, which would be $1,100. Last example is for Hua. She is looking another short-term experience. She's a 10th grader. She dreams of being a chef. She's being referred to Pathways because Pathways has a relationship with a nearby restaurant that allows students to try out jobs that they have. She is going to participate in a 120-hour experience where she'll do prep work in the kitchen. So it's all the same, 1 to 2 hours first meeting or intake, but then we're going up to 10 hours at $75 an hour, same type and title. And the services are to orient her to the experience and following up with her, preparation, employer development, and then it looks like travel my slide got a little messed up there. But travel would be included. And then there would be another authorization, or it could be on the same authorization, could be another line on the authorization for work experience wages, $10 an hour, plus the 25% admin fee, which will soon be 50%. I see a question that popped up. Can we do work-based learning coaching? I should have added that as an example, and I didn't, and I think I just forgot. But yes, you can. So let's say that Hua needed job coaching as well, work-based learning coaching. So that could be another line on the authorization. PREETs, services in support of PREETs at $75 an hour. Right now we're using whatever job coaching rate is on the contract. And then once your contracts are amended, it'll be $75 an hour for work-based learning coaching. And then however many hours that the student needed coaching. Is it loaded into Workforce One? It sure is. So if staff need any help with that, you can talk to your FOSS, or Sherry Henriksen worked on getting it all loaded in there, so it's all ready to go. The last thing I want to share with all of you is invoice and report checklist. This was also emailed to everybody that registered. This is a new checklist that we put together. It says DRS invoice and report checklist. So this can actually be used not just for PREETs, but for any invoice. It can be helpful to community partners. So before you're sending over reports and invoices, this is like a quality assurance check for you. I know I'm hearing from some of the partners that they're getting invoices returned or reports returned because there's incomplete or missing information. So this is a full checklist that tells you everything that needs to be in place in order for you to get paid. This also could be helpful to VRS staff. So when you're getting an invoice, you can go through this checklist to make sure that everything is there in order to pay. So just real quickly on the checklist, first thing, is there a report and invoice that are being submitted together? We have a note on here. We have some PREETs providers that had grants with VRS. There were 12 providers total across the state that have access into Workforce One to submit their reports. So if that is the case for you, you can enter the report into case notes. Everybody else is submitting them through the email address that's on the authorization. Is the service identified on the invoice and the report, and do they match? And does this match the services that are on the authorization? Is there sufficient detail to account for services outlined within the report? One thing to note is that for work experience wages, an accounting of the number of hours the student worked each day must be given. A lot of times providers are submitting a copy of the student's timesheet. That's one way of submitting the documentation for that, or you can just include it in the report. Do the dates and hours on the report and invoice match? And do those dates and hours fall within the dates on the authorization? Are the correct rates indicated on the invoice? Do they match the report? So for instance, like when it's a PREETs individual or a group service, that's really what you're looking at in terms of rates, difference with PREETs anyway. Do the costs add up correctly? Is the correct authorization number indicated on the invoice? And is there just one authorization number on the invoice? And lastly, is there a unique invoice number on the invoice? So there's no wonder that you know, this can be difficult for everybody at times because it is complicated. So hopefully this checklist can help a little bit with that invoicing process. So I believe that's all I have in terms of some training content for today. We want to be moving into some discussion. I'm going to hand it over to Chris McVeigh, although I know she had, Chris, are you on? Okay. I know she told me she had to get off. Are you there, Chris? Thought I heard her.
It looks like this is Gretchen, it looks like she unmuted.
Okay, this is Chris, and yeah, I'm here for another four minutes or so. I have a laptop deployment coming up here, so
All right.
I'll hop back on as soon as that's done.
Okay. I know we were just going to go into our discussion time, but I know you were going to say a few words. I know you have your laptop deployment there.
Yeah, so I think the main thing I wanted to share is that we look forward to this being the first of more opportunities for VRS and community partners to come together, to learn together, to get updated and have common understanding about services and how authorizing works and how what invoicing should look like, including reporting. I think that when we learn together and we hear the same information and then test for, you know, just ask those questions and get them responded to at the same time, these regional meetings, I think, are the perfect forum for that. So again, I'm really looking forward to more of these opportunities to have both VRS and community partners joining the same conversation. And I think the other thing is that while we know that with COVID-19 and the impact on school districts as they start their school years in September, it likely will continue to be really challenging in terms of how to connect those students, where are those students. But I know absolutely that our pre-ETS reps and our VRS transition counselors are looking to connect with those students. Hopefully we have teachers that are thinking about how to connect students to these vital services that help to flesh out their days if they're in remote learning. And also how we can leverage virtual technology to support students in their learning as well. I think most of us have heard it's almost becoming a cliche that, you know, with COVID-19, it's changed our world forever and not always for the worst. And how we've been able to leverage virtual technology to meet with one another and connect with one another can be the same technology that can connect with students as well. So I'm excited about what the school year can bring. And then I'm really looking forward to that time where we can get back to mostly our lives as much as normal can be going forward. So I just really wanted to put that forward. I look forward to the local conversations, in those chat rooms coming up here. And yeah, I will be back after my laptop redeployment.
Thank you, Chris. I know, so what we want to do, we're going to break, and I'm going to let Ann jump on here in a second. But just to set this up a little bit, we had emailed out to our RAMs and placement staff from each of our teams ahead of time some information about having these local discussions. So again, each of our providers, we all have the opportunity to select which team you'll have these conversations in. And so we want this to be time for the VRS staff to share a bit about what they see, what they know to be as needs for students, either they've served in the last year or, you know, they currently on their caseload, and also what they know schools in their region need. And it's a time for the community partners to be able to share the sort of services that you have available. And of course, addressing virtual versus face-to-face in this time of COVID. And then another big piece to be talking about is, you know, we really feel that going forward, we're we're not going to always have to set up these special events for all of us to come together, because hopefully all of you are coming together within the business engagement networks. And I know many of you already are, and hopefully the conversations, you know, at least a piece of those BEN meetings can be about how we're coming together to serve students with pre-ed services. So just to have a little more conversation about how those BEN meetings can really support our collaboration together. And then if there's time, if there's any questions that your teams, that your local groups have that you want to bring back. So we're going to have some time for local discussion. And again, our RAMs or the placement staff on each team, they've decided who's going to facilitate the discussion, who's going to take some notes. We're going to have time for you to go through these questions, and then we're going to make sure we have time for a break. And then we're going to come back together to hear what each team talked about, just give a little recap on the discussion. And I'm just wondering, Anne, I know that you said it takes a little bit of time to get everybody into the breakout sessions, so I want you to tell me if you think we should take the break right now or do it afterwards. I'm thinking that once we get people in the breakout sessions, that we'll want to start with 45 minutes of time so that there's enough time to get through the questions and for everybody to share.
Okay, we're going to do a teaming thing right now because we are so close to getting everybody assigned in a breakout session. I know some of you may or may not be used to using the chat. I've been sending some individual chats for this. So can we do this? Because I think if we can get everybody assigned, Alyssa, then I am happy to maybe suggest if you need like a 5-minute before we regroup, we can do that, and then you can come back and we can explain how the breakout sessions would work. How does that sound?
Okay, so 5 minutes. Should we just say at 2:40? Take a break.
But can I call out some names first? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to partner with Gretchen. These are the last names. If you don't care that which team you're assigned to, then you either in the chat. How about this? In the chat, put who you want to be assigned to. I put the names in there again, or put an X if you don't care. And I'm going to have the names roll out. And Gretchen, if you can be my partner in crime on this and just tell me what the choice is, that would be awesome. Okay?
Got it.
Okay. So I have Chad Aldridge as the first one. Chad, do you have an opinion? If so, put it in the chat. Hopefully everybody should be able to use that again in that chat on the side. Or if you need to voice, you can raise your hand and Gretchen can unmute you.
And do you prefer that I just send you a private message on the side, or do you want me to verbalize what the chats are?
You can verbalize it. And anybody else who is not, all the VRS staff certainly can take a break, and anybody who's provided us that information can take a break.
Okay. Chad is St. Cloud.
Thank you, Chad. Okay, the next one up is Haley Brennan.
I don't see a Haley yet, but I have a few other folks that have chimed in, Anne.
Okay, yep. Why don't you give me those?
Rada, Espinoza,
yep. Crookston, thank you.
Chris McCord.
1 second.
Okay.
Chris McCord. I think I got Chris, but go ahead.
This is North.
I might have had Chris sign. Okay.
And that's all I've got so far.
Okay, is there Jesse Smith still on?
I don't think I see, oh yes, in the participant list there is still a Jesse Smith, but I don't see a chief coming in yet.
How about Jill Geroy? You have a part?
Still here.
And Jill, do you have an opinion? You can put it in the chat, or if you don't have an opinion, just put next or Gretchen.
Nothing yet.
Jolene Jewell.
Let's see. Yep, Jolene is still on the list.
And Jolene, is still on? Go to the next room. Rebecca Christensen.
Oh, Jill just responded, Ann. Bemidji, please.
Thank you.
And do you have a Vicki Cochran on your list?
I do.
All right, Bemidji.
Awesome.
And Rebecca Christensen. When you're ready, let me know.
Yep, ready.
Fergus Falls, please.
Falls, you guys are awesome. Thank you. You know, this is a part of our registration process, but I'm not sure if everybody understood. So, okay. Then Stephen Schmidt.
Still on the list.
Okay. Or Tanya Catino.
Yep, still here.
Tara Brooks.
Yep.
And Tina Stringer. Those are the ones we need to see if providers are still listening. That would be helpful to just hear back from you. Otherwise, we'll sign you to a group. Thank you so much.
Did you say Mike Harper? That one?
Mike Harper, I think I have assigned to Cambridge, am I right?
Cambridge, yes. Oh, there's Tanya.
Okay.
Kirkston, please.
Kirkston, thank you.
And do you have a Vanessa on your list?
She might be assigned already, but tell me where she is.
Fergus Falls.
Oh, Vanessa Picard.
Yeah.
Sorry, Vanessa, if I messed up your name. Okay, that's good. So the only ones I have left are Haley Brennan, Jesse Smith, Jolene Jewell, Stephen Schmidt, Sarah Brooks, and Tina Stringer.
Let's see, I got a message from one of our staff saying Tara Brooks would be Monticello.
Oh yeah, certainly weigh in. VRF staff as well, you know these things, so thank you. They're so close.
Jesse Smith just came in, Ann. Bemidji, please.
Thank you.
Stephen Schmidt will be Crookston. Thank you.
Great. We're down to 3. So Haley Brennan, Jolene Stringer. I know this is exciting.
Woohoo! Well, actually, I got 2 messages about Jolene. From Jolene, she put an X, so maybe it doesn't matter, but some is claiming Jolene. Okay, Duluth.
Okay. It is Tina and Haley. Tina Stringer, Haley Brennan. And we really do appreciate anybody who stayed on to kind of work through this process. It's really important for us that you get into the right team. And it's quite, when you divide it this way, rather than randomly do it, it's a little bit of a different process. That's why we tried to ask for it ahead of time. So thank you again for working through it with us. Oh. I might have left, but I think I just have Tina Stringer. So if Tina's out there, or if anybody knows Tina Stringer's team, that would be great.
So Ann?
Yep.
This is Alyssa. So We're at 2:41, and you're just about ready there, it sounds like.
I am, yep. I might just send Tina to the Michi unless I hear her.
And Tina just came through. Cambridge, please.
Oh, I was close on the guess. Okay. Everybody. Woo! Thank you for coming through. Okay, so couple things. I'm going to go through this information and then I'll just need one brief moment to make sure we've got all the presenters in the room. But I've got the ball, don't I? I've got to grab the ball back, so let me do that. So we went through this at the very beginning of this webinar, but I want to go through it again because it's not doing this in WebEx before for probably many of you. It helps to get a reminder. And we did have our VRF staff go through this morning, so they have some coaching skills to help walk you through it. So when you go into breakout rooms, you will have to unmute yourself. You'll go unmuted and you'll have to unmute yourself. And what you do is when you get in there, you'll see your name kind of pop up. What you do is you take your mouse, you click on your name so it's highlighted, and then you'll see below that, much like this, I'll show the screen, much like this audio piece on the right-hand side under the participant tab. To the right of it will be a mute, unmute button that kind of comes up. So that's what you want to look for. And if you do that, you click on it, click on your name, highlight it, and then through the mute, unmute, you can allow your audio to be unmuted, and then mute it when you don't want to be talking, and that's fine. So, so that is one thing to just be aware of. The presenters in the room have some responsibilities. There mostly are Rance and some other staff and I'll walk through who those presenters are in each room. But they have a responsibility to start the session so that you can join it. So they will click on starting the session, and then they'll also move their voice audio over to that breakout session. You will also, if you're not a presenter, receive a pop-up that says, would you like to join this session? And you push yes, and then you click yes again to move that audio over. So that is how it works. The other things we will try to do is we'll try to pop into those sessions and make sure everything's going okay. And I will do that, and possibly Melissa, she has the ability to do that. She does have the ability with just some other things. So, and I also will try to see if we can plug the questions into each of the rooms in the chat. But if you have the PowerPoint, you should have the questions as well on that. The questions, I think, let's see, you had shared those. So these are the questions that we'll be asking you to kind of talk about and give some thought to. And then we'll have the recorders who will be taking some notes and be able to present back when we come back together. So any questions? Or Alyssa, you said 45 minutes or?
Yeah, let's give it 45 minutes. And then, so if we go till 3:30, and then should we just come back together at 3:30 then as a large group, and we'll ask each group to just give a brief overview of the discussion that you had.
Yeah, yeah. And certainly if your group in that 45 minutes wants to take a 5 minutes just kind of refresh, that's okay to do. You guys can decide how that works out best. Just don't log out of the WebEx to do it. Stay where you're at in that breakout session, and you should just be able to come back into the audio if that makes sense. So if anything else that we should talk about, any questions, we'll give it a second in the chat before we go into breakout sessions. So in the Bemidji room, I'm just going to make sure right now we have Randa, who is going to be the presenter. So she will start the breakout session. In the Cambridge room, we have Joy, who's going to be the presenter. She's around there, and we'll start that session. In the Cloquet Duluth room, we have, Sonia, who's in there, Sonia Venice, is in there, and she'll be doing that. In the Crookston room, we will have Jeff be the presenter. He's around there, and we'll be presenting there. In the Detroit Lakes, Ferguson Falls, Rapids, Eric is going to be doing that. And then in the Monticello room, it will be Lori Thorpe. Did a nice job facilitating in there. And St. Cloud, you will have Jeff be the one to present. So if that all makes sense for everybody, look for that pop-up to invite you to join the session if you're not the presenter, and then also for moving your audio to the breakout room. So we'll jump in and see how you're doing. Good luck, everybody. Have some great discussion. Thanks.
Okay, are you trying to get rid of me? I can hear your voice. You're trying to get rid of me. You are. I'm not going to let you go. What else is new? Oh, it takes up a lot of time, doesn't he? Did he? Yeah, he's still honeymooning. But maybe that's what maybe he's just going to continue to be a good boy. Yeah. You could have the run of the neighborhood, but we wouldn't want him to get hurt, you know. But anyhow, all right, this is dumb talk because I thought you were trying to get rid of me. But I will see you tomorrow. Okay, bye. She said she's coming tomorrow, irregardless.
Oh.
Okay, I have an invitation for you. I have an invitation. I would like to invite you back to the bathroom so I could read back and forth. By us, we are overwhelming. Okay, come on, Bill. And am I putting your boot back on, honey? No. No, you're just seeing your wrapping, right?
Hey, Chris, can you mute up, please? Hello, all. I think you're all coming back. We decided to pull you back a little bit. Hope you're having some good discussions. We had a couple people. One Cambridge had their session end, so I just wanted to check in a larger group, and there are a couple people that just need to get into a different group. So we did call you back. How about, why don't you give me a pulse while we're doing this about how things are going for your discussion? How about you can give me an icon or a check mark if you want to do that. And then we'll try to get some people to the right spaces here while we're doing that. And we're going to give it another try for some people who need to be moved a bit. So
Seeing some folks saying thumbs up, group is going great. A couple people having issues about not being able to unmute, so they just instead utilize the chat function.
Okay, great. And just again, a reminder about that. When you get into the room, you're going to see your name hopefully above. And what you really want to do is make sure that you click on that so it's highlighted, and then that mute unmute bar will come up. That's the trick. It's a little different going in, so then you're probably used to. And
is it helpful for me to read through the ones that I've seen who asked to be switched, or actually some of them lost connection, were kicked out of the room?
Yeah, that's what I'm checking right now. So Jamie, I have you moved over to Cambridge. Jamie Neville. Yeah, and then I wanted to just check in because the Cambridge group actually ended, so I see Joy getting back in. Is there a better person, maybe Joy, you can put in the chat, just put the presenter to? I don't know if it was because of getting kicked out or what. But Joy, you can maybe send something in the chat. And Gretchen, can I have you be my eyes while I'm doing this to just see what
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And then any other ones that you can give me, that's fine too.
Okay, I've got a few that were already there. Now, Richard would like to be moved to the Duluth group.
Yep.
Okay. Ahmed needs to go to the St. Cloud group. Okay. If we could reassign a different note taker for Eric Whitroth's group. The current one wasn't in the group, it doesn't sound like.
So you want a different presenter or different?
He just said his note taker wasn't in the group, so I'm not sure if that makes it difficult for them to continue their conversation or. Okay.
Is Maureen in that group? If Maureen, if you're in that group, maybe you could give me a thumbs up about if you could be like note taker for Eric.
Okay.
Eric.
Let's see, Debbie Patton, St. Cloud, please.
Oh, St. Cloud. Okay.
And Melissa Dirk, Bemidji. And Heather is saying that the mute bar isn't just placed in the breakout room, it's next to the audio button, she says.
Right. Yep. Melissa Dirk, Bemidji, you said?
Yes, please.
Okay. So one other thing just to remind you, because Melissa, you're in there, just make sure to let us know if you're getting those two notices, again, that you're being asked to join that room, and make sure you click yes, and then make sure to then click yes again to move your audio over. So that might be a factor too. So that might be a factor for people's audio as well. That the mute unmute shows up when you highlight your name right next to the audio bar.
And I'm going to apologize. I've got a lawnmower outside the window, but I have another one. Michelle Presley, Cambridge, please.
How's that coming up right now? Okay, we'll have to see. Try to refresh and see if it comes up.
And that's all I've seen so far, Anne. So I apologize if I missed somebody. Send me a chat, and I will alert Anne to that, and we'll get you switched up.
Okay, everybody, we're going to try this again. I still have Schneider out, and I have Tina Springer in my list. So, so if for any reason I'm missing you and putting you into Zoom, let us know. Give it one more second. Any other questions that people are having about the experience? And I appreciate you guys working with this.
And then just a quick check, Emily Galsky and Amelia Roma are both in Cambridge, correct?
Emily Galsky and who else?
Amelia Roma.
Yes, they both are.
Great, thank you.
So again, look for the...
Katie Holmberg, too, needs to be in Cambridge.
Yep, she was moved over, yep.
And Nell Rickard should be in Duluth.
And who?
Nell, N-E-L-L-E.
Yeah, Nell's not coming up right now, so I don't know if Nell got out and see nothing. Hopefully. All right, so we're gonna do this another try. And do we have anything this time? So any feedback from Kelly on Cambridge? Try it again with being presented in there. So I'm going to double check the sign staff. And then I'm about to sit for going back in. Everybody, we're going to do another try. The joys of technology, right? Okay. All right. Do another try going now. Have a good discussion.
Part of the state is definitely an area and a lot of rural areas. So I'm hoping we can start to examine that and look at ways we can encourage districts to support more work-based learning. So thank you so much. Okay, how about we move to Eric Whitbrodt?
All right, can you hear me? Well,
Yes, we can hear you. Thank
okay,
you.
it's working now. The mute unmute box is just frozen in limbo in front of me. Well, pretty much what Jeff and Randa's areas discussed, we discussed. Some of the key points are, I think everyone in our area, we all know each other, we know how to contact each other, and we understand the importance of these services. I mean, we have plenty of students to go around. I think we have like, what, 14,000 schools in our area alone. So the more providers, the merrier. I think we'll have more than enough work for all the providers in our region, not just with potentially eligible, but with the eligible services too. And we really talked about how it will be important for us to just all keep in contact as we assess the needs of each district. We have so many unique districts, and some districts with pretty adequate resources and some with hardly any resources. And I am highly confident in our partners and in the VRS staff in our region will be making those connections as soon as they can and figuring it out.
Thank you, Eric. I mean, that really is the key to all of it is communication together. And I love the idea of like just working with schools together as well and hearing from them and assessing where the gaps are and how we can fill them. So thank you for that update. I will move us over to, how about Sonia Vinnis and the Duluth Cloquet team?
Hi, are you able to hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. Hi, Alyssa. Well, I think creativity and flexibility were kind of the themes of our discussion, with realizing that, you know, we are building this plane. First, we started building this plane with pre-ETS, and then we had the pandemic on top of it. So really figuring out we're going to be working our way together as a rehab community through all these challenges, and balancing just that everybody's needs for safety, for what the schools and the families and the students, what they want and what they're kind of able to manage and take on, as well as our partners. And so just working together to kind of find that balance. Partners are, you know, I think everybody kind of agreed that virtual services will be the norm to as much to the, for most individuals, for the, at least in the short run, but in-person services will be available for those who really need it. Let's see, I didn't take notes. Andy and Bruce were taking notes. They can certainly jump in to the chat if I forgot anything, but I think that's kind of it, kind of the same kind of communication, same kind of conversation that the other regions were having about just working together and being flexible and creative during this time and serving students and families and schools as best we can.
Thank you, Sonia. I agree. I think, you know, the virtual services right now, I think we've learned that for some students, virtual services have worked out even better, and it helps us in the rural areas at times with reaching out to students, but not always ideal. Just like, you know, our meeting today, we'd like to be in person, and it is nice to do that, but glad to hear about the flexibility that everyone's willing to kind of figure it out together. I'm going to go back to St. Cloud. Jess, I want to publicly thank Jess for jumping in to lead the team discussions there today. Skip Whitrock ran there and he's retired, and so thank you, Jess, for jumping in. Do you want to give a quick review of your discussion?
Sure. I like Sonia's idea of flexibility and creativity, because isn't that what it all comes down to right now? And everybody can hear me, right? Okay, I think so. Okay, sounds good. We did have some technical difficulties in our group where we had two vendors that weren't able to communicate with us, so that made it a little bit more tricky. But I think we did a really nice job of really identifying what, as a VR team, we're seeing and what we're feeling are the biggest needs within pre-ETS within our area. As always, I think Alexandria spoke up about that they're always in need of additional services and service providers and how can they meet the needs in the schools. We also had our providers report out as to where they're at with services and with updating their contracts, and both the face-to-face and virtual. It was kind of nice to have us all in one space to really talk through those services and talk through what those needs are and what the providers are currently able to provide for services. I think that was a nice connection. Adam, our placement, internal placement, talked a lot about the employment network and how engagement is going there, and we had additional conversations about how we can engage pre-ETS within those services or within that employment network, engagement network, sorry. I had a phone call right after our meeting, and somebody had also brought up the work experience coordinators and, you know, would there be a way or would that be valuable for those work experience coordinators to get involved within those business engagement networks. Other opportunities that we talked about our local ECBC and how we can connect pre-ETS within there. We had a couple service providers that are really involved within our local ECBC, and so how do we involve everybody? We also talked about our CTIC. Two of our counselors that have been very involved within our CTIC, one retired and one moved offices, and so we're kind of reevaluating what our current CTIC looks like and how we can re-engage within CTIC and how we can really utilize that as a way to get involved. And then one of our providers also brought up our local disability task force and how we could maybe involve pre-ETS within the disability task force. Those are the big pieces that we talked about.
Beautiful. I'm reminded of, it's a good thing we have, but it can also feel overwhelming sometimes when you have so many different groups coming together, and how we can streamline some of that. I mean, you have so much going on there in that area with ECDC, CTIC, task force, and the BENS, and you clearly are all working together already, so that's wonderful. Okay, I'm going to move on to Lori Thorpe from the Monticello team.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome, thank you. First, I'd like to give a shout out to our group. It was fun to be part of that. And then to our very speedy note taker, Cindy, who already has edited the notes and gotten them to me. It's like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. Thank you all. We are most excited about job shadows and work-based learning experiences and the coaching that goes along with those work-based learning opportunities or experiences. So that's exciting. And then we had two providers join us, one from Goodwill and one from CMJTS. And they've been primarily doing their services virtually with a few safely distanced in-person meetings as needed. And they try to keep those short, and they stay 6 feet apart and wear masks and all that. And some ideas we thought would be really neat would be virtual career fairs that are targeted to our work, where participants and VR professionals can ask questions and learn more about the jobs that are out there right now. We also like the idea of having employers who have worked with us successfully in the past virtually share their experiences with us, with other employers that haven't used us yet or haven't worked with us ever, to learn what all we have to offer, what we're all about, and that might encourage them then to give us a chance and work with us, and they'd be mentors, so to speak, and just kind of sharing their experiences. And for the Business Engagement Network, one idea we've had, because it's been kind of hard to engage people, and I know, working remotely can be hard as well, obviously. But one idea we had was to save maybe the last half hour of each meeting for those providers and VRS staff who work with PREETs to kind of brainstorm together and talk through all these things that we're learning, and it really is in progress. And then as far as school and employer involvement, we thought it would be really nice to have employers go into the schools either virtually or in person and really educate the students on some of those high demand jobs, good paying jobs, and how to get into those jobs. And we all agreed the earlier the better. If we could get in sophomore year, really get those employers in front of those students before they decide, college, no college, tech program, before they choose their path. And then our one question, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, Alyssa or anyone, but so we're offering these Coursera classes. So it's that free platform for people to take classes. And just wondering, where VRS stands on that. Do we offer accommodations? Do we help try to get them set up with some sort of a disability services office if it's a longer class on Coursera? And I know a lot of them are really short, and obviously that wouldn't probably be the case for those, but some of these longer programs, so something to that we've just been thinking about on the team. So thank you, that's it.
Wow, that was a lot packed into such a short period of time that you guys talked about, and I love the creativity. And I also love the, again, like, rather than having to do these separate meetings like today, how these discussions can happen within the Business Engagement Network meetings. And like you said, the last 30 minutes to focus on PREETs and where everybody's at would be a great forum to continue these discussions. In terms of Coursera, we're going to have to get back to you. I'm well aware of Coursera. I don't know if anyone started digging into how we can look at accommodations and disability services. So maybe if people have already looked into that, you can let me know. Otherwise, maybe Lori, you and I can chat a little bit more and look into kind of maybe some of the things that your staff are running up against and how we can figure out disability services and accommodations through that platform.
Hi, Alyssa. This is Chris McVeigh. I just wanted to add in that with our placement specialists and the work that we're doing with business and leveraging our wonderful placement coordinators within VRF that lead the business engagement networks, we are in development of what's called bite-sized learning for business specifically around the value of hiring people with disabilities and some other pieces that it's a business-led effort that they're, like Mayo Clinic, Land O'Lakes, talking about what information that they want employees within their own business to understand about disability, and as well as wanting to share that out. So that training will probably look at launching in early 2021, but that would go out through events. And we would be looking to both our VRS and community partner staff to be able to share that information with business about the value of hiring people with disabilities and, like I said, some other bite-sized learning, which essentially is ways that employers can get their employees connecting to the abilities of people with disabilities and ways that they can contribute to the workforce in 15-minute increments, and they can, access it at their desks. And it's pretty cool what we're developing. And then there's also something that Marcy Jasper, one of our placement specialists, has learned about, and it's called windmills. And that's coming out from our national CSAVR, the Council for State VR Directors that Dee Torgerson is part of, and their national employment team. And so we have a number of business-led trainings, or business-informed, but trainings that we can give to business that we want to be able to share out with our business engagement networks, and that would be led by our placement coordinators and specialists that are leading those bends. So just a little heads up on that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chris. Okay, so last but not least, Joy Bisey from our Cambridge team.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah, hi. I'm going to do a quick summary because we ended with some good questions and I think the whole group would like to know. So our conversation, real similar to others throughout the area, and the need and hope for some community-based work experiences and working with students and the flexibility of their school schedule to get those opportunities for them. Our partners are available for the services they have on their contracts. They're doing virtual work when possible, but also have the flexibility to meet in face-to-face with students and employers as needed using social distancing in place. We did a quick summary of our BENS group, which has been active. Marcy was nice to give us an overview of that and invite partners to join. It is monthly, and both Emily and Amelia, our placement and pre-ETS, are part of that each month, so that brings that piece together and allows for that monthly collaboration. And then we got onto the topic of what things are going to look like, how each of our districts and our counties are different, and kind of keeping that open line of communication and making sure we're meeting each individual student's needs, and looking at specifically some clarification on what can be authorized and billed for job coaching that's done virtually, looking at distinguishing what job coaching is virtually versus like a follow-up on, how'd your day go, and getting some clarification on what could be billed under virtual job coaching. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Joy, for all of that. I think I need why don't we try to get a little more information on that? That's a good question that hasn't really been brought forth as, like, how do we clarify between what would be a virtual job coaching or work-based learning coaching versus like a follow-up service. So would love to hear, maybe have some more conversation and we can send out a clarification to everybody on that going forward. Okay, well, I'm noticing the time. We're at 4 o'clock and I want to respect everybody's time. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining today. It sounds like even with, some of the technology glitches, we still had some great conversation. I look forward to hearing from all of you on how it goes in the future. And please feel free to contact me anytime with questions or ideas as you're moving forward with providing pre-ETS. Have a good rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. And look, we will send out just a little mini eval for you to give feedback on today, too, because that's always helpful for us. So thank you again today. You guys did a great job.